We are commemorating the tragic events on 9/11 over this next coming week, talking about people's experiences and what they went through. And what we have with us today on our virtual meetings is from Washington, D.C. is Colonel retired Pat Flood, a gentleman who I have had the honor to serve with multiple times in the Air Force, and now he's part of our team in the 2nd District, serving out of Washington. He does all of our Armed Services Committee work and just does a fantastic job. We think we have the best Armed Services staff member of anybody in Congress right now, and Pat Flood. And so, but Pat, if you could tell us what did you do in the Air Force prior to 9/11?
Hey, thanks, Congressman. So I joined the Air Force right out of high school. I was accepted to the Air Force Academy and went to school there for 4 years. Graduated in 1990, and then I began my career in the Air Force. I've had a kind of a diverse career, as you know. I started off working in Air Force Special Operations, doing tactical intelligence planning, and then moved into theater level air operations, did a tour in Korea. And then that was where interspersed with several staff tours in the Pentagon. Like a lot of us, we all spend our time, if you make the Air Force a career as an officer, you have your share of Pentagon tours. And I was on my second Pentagon tour as a major during the events of 9/11. And so that day is a pretty significant day, not only for all Americans, but each of us have our own personal story.
So
you
were at the Pentagon on 9/11.
Yeah, I was kind of right there in the center of the action during the events.
And so what was your job at the Pentagon? What was your duties?
So I was, as you call it, as an action officer, you work, staff actions for the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. But when I joined the team there in the Pentagon in 2000 on my second tour, I was offered an opportunity to join a smaller team that was getting organized called the Continuity of Operations Planning Team, or the COOP team. And this was a team of action officers across the air staff whose job was to be prepared in the event of a catastrophic emergency that required the relocation of the senior Pentagon leadership. And so I started that process of a team that was organized by the Air Force, or reorganized by the Air Force, about a year before the 9/11 attacks. It's a story not a lot of people understand, but I was part of that team.
So I was part of the COOP too, and in different eras of my tours in the Pentagon. So I remember going to different sites to practice. So tell us, how did 9/11 start for you? How did your day proceed?
Well, it was a day like any other day, right? However you choose to commute to the Pentagon. For me, it ended up, driving there back when you could park nearby the Pentagon as a junior member of the staff. And I entered, and I remember, like a lot of us do, how beautiful the day was. It was a beautiful September morning, not a cloud in the sky, just a radiant blue sky. And I went into work and began, working whatever the hot item of the day was. One thing in the air staff is you never really know what you're going to confront when you walk in the door. And then about, it was mid-morning, I remember I got a phone call from the executive officer of one of the deputy chiefs of staff, and said that a plane had hit a tower in New York, and that the Air Force Crisis Action Team was getting formed down in the basement of the Pentagon in the Operations Center, and that I was to go down and report in. So that's what I did, and I ended my call, closed out my email, and I walked down to the basement to the Air Force Operations Group, which at the time had an operations center there near the 9th Corridor. And shortly after I walked in and to my duty position and got online, the word came out that a second plane had hit. And that completely changed the tenor and the focus of everything that happened, not only for the rest of that day, but honestly, for the rest of our lives as a nation. And I think we all remember when we realized that we were under attack, how life changed forever.
I was watching that TV right when it happened in Tucson, 2 or 3 hours behind you. I knew I went from maybe an accident to absolutely we are under attack. And I know it hit us all right then. We know we were at war.
Right? Absolutely. And
so the second plane hit, and then please continue.
Well, so after it became evident that there was an attack in progress and that we had to secure the airspace of the United States, so a conference call was established between our location, NORAD, and the FAA, and the airspace control mechanism in the United States had to now figure out a way to shut down the entire airspace of the country, something had never been done before. So they were beginning to land planes while NORAD was scrambling fighters and trying to get a clear picture of who was who in the airspace. And as we were working through this progress through this process, the word came out on CNN that the Pentagon had there was smoke coming out of the Pentagon. And where we were on the opposite side of the building from where the aircraft struck, down in the basement. And it's a testament to how solid the building is that nobody in the Air Force Operations Center felt the impact.
Yeah, you didn't feel a shudder or anything.
Wow. Not at all. Mm-hmm. And as the story that later became apparent is fortunately that aircraft, American Flight 77, happened to strike the one part of the Pentagon that actually had the fewest number of people in it.
Right.
And we were grateful for that. However, more than 100 Americans died. And we're mindful of is that the same people doing the same, or in the Navy, the same staff members doing what we were doing, they were happened to be located in that part of the building. So a lot of them perished immediately, very tragically. I remember the colonel I worked for at the time told me to stop everything I was doing and to pick up the phone and to call somebody outside of the building to let them know I was alive.
Yeah.
And I called at the time my girlfriend, Tori, who you know, and she was the one I called. And when I heard her voice back to me on that telephone call, that's when everything suddenly came into focus and it became clear how real and significant this was. Obviously, she was, out of her mind with fear and concern, was in tears when I called her. And that's when the whole situation became very clear to me what was actually happening.
Right. So you had a colleague from the Air Force Academy killed that day. Could you tell that story briefly?
Yeah, I think a lot of Americans know the story of United Flight 93. And that was the one aircraft that had diverted its course over Ohio, actually, and started to turn back, flying back to the Washington, D.C. area. What had happened was, along with the other three flights that had been hijacked, Flight 93 was hijacked, and the first officer of United Flight 93 was a colleague of mine from the Air Force Academy. We were in the same squadron together. He was a few years older than me. His name was Leroy Homer, and he had served his initial tour of duty in the Air Force and then had transitioned out as a commercial airline pilot. But he was one of the first Americans murdered in this attack. And I think of him often when I think about how that war started in the very first hours, that he was one of the very first casualties of that episode.
It's important to note that it wasn't the American military that drew first blood that day. It was actually civilians who saw that happening and took up what weapons they could find, coffee pots, you name it, and retook that aircraft away from the hijackers, and it crashed in the process, saving either the U.S. Capitol or the White House. We don't know which. A lot of people think it was the Capitol, but they're really not totally sure. But the heroism of the civilians on that airliner saved either the White House or the Capitol, and God bless them. They were clearly courageous. And so, go ahead, Pat. Looks like
I was going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because that point for a lot of us in Washington that day, especially those of us in the Pentagon, we owe a debt of gratitude to those American heroes that we'll never be able to break. We don't know where that plane was going to go, but clearly it was coming back to either finish the job or to hit a new target. And they gave their lives for strangers they never met. And in way I look at it is that was the very first counterattack from the United States in this. And, it's so inspiring that it came from average, everyday citizens who said they weren't going to accept that.
I still, my hair stands up when I think of those words, let's roll. That was the words from those civilians saying, we're going to fight back. And so it was incredible. Pat, how did your career change after this? I mean, you were we were focused primarily on Iraq. We were doing a little Iraq and Saddam Hussein, Russia and China. Our whole orientation changed that day. And how did it affect you?
Well, I remember after the senior staff was evacuated by helicopter later that day, so I relocated with the Secretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff and a small team. And I remember Brigadier General Leaf at the time, who you may remember, he was helping the staff get organized and keep us in contact with the national leadership and the U.S. Air Force forces. And he told us later that evening that we were all to go home, get cleaned up, hug our wife, our families, and report back to duty at first light back in the Pentagon, whether or not the building was on fire. We were going to work and we were going to war. We had a job to do and America needed us. And from that moment on, and it wasn't just for me, but it was for all of us in uniform, we knew that our lives and our service was going to be forever changed. And so that very next day, we began the work to plan the counterattack and everything that followed. And then a few months after the attack, early in 2002, I deployed, like a lot of us, to the very first campaign to rid Afghanistan of the Taliban. And I think for everybody that served from that moment, their service, the nature of their service, forever changed. And it has defined not only our service in uniform, but really what came out of that. I think as we've shared before that my girlfriend at the time was pretty integral to those events that day, and I eventually asked her to marry me. She, in a way, was her own hero in 9/11. The next day, she bluffed her way onto the restricted zone of the Pentagon and tried to help. And by the end of the day, she was running the Red Cross food service line there, and I was pretty impressed with that.
Yeah.
She ended up losing her job over that, but I figured that the nation needed her in the Air Force more than working where she was. So I asked her to marry.
She lost her job, got a husband out of that one.
That's right. That's right. So from that point on, though, we spent time, a lot of time away from each other and away from those we love, serving in foreign lands in the Middle East to do what we needed to do.
Pat, how many times have you been to the Middle East since 9/11?
I think the count was 3. And of course, no matter where you are, especially in the U.S. Air Force, we have the ability to affect a distant battlefield from almost any other part of the world. And so even though I've deployed multiple times, like you, to the Middle East, even when we weren't deployed and we were back at some other location, whether it was in the United States or Germany or some other place, we actually were able to directly affect the outcome and save lives. And that's really a unique part of our, the United States military as well as the U.S. Air Force.
Right. Well, Pat, it looks like I almost thought you went on mute there for a second. I apologize. So, Pat, I want to thank you for sharing your story. I worked with you at Ramstein in Germany, and you were one of the most tremendous colonels I've ever served with. And you went on from there to do great things at Beale Air Force Base in California, where you were leading a lot of our intelligence operations from there, and a lot of it centered on the Middle East. And then I know you're also in the Pentagon, again, coordinating all of the intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance schedules for all of DoD. And so we're so proud to have you on the team. And thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you, Congressman.